Hello, good evening.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Uncomfy Truths, episode 34. We are back at it again. It is lots to talk about. Obviously, we got to address the big elephant in the room. I'm your co-host, Conservative Brother Daily, here with my co-host, Conspiracy Brother. How you doing, good sir?
You know, uh, I feel good. I feel Schadenfreude. Is that the correct word?
Schadenfreude.
I feel great. Yeah, Schadenfreude. It's a German word. It means joy at the misfortune of others, something to that effect.
Oh, yes.
So I am having maybe some of the most Schadenfreude I've felt in a while, and
yes,
so I feel good. I feel good.
Awesome. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I feel like let me go ahead and do a quick shameless plug, just real quick, and then we'll get to our special guest. So Conspiracy Brother, if you can go ahead and give me the screen share. Once again, guys, you guys are watching Uncomfy Truths. This is our 34th podcast. Yeah, if you could just put that on the screen for me, Conspiracy Brother. We are on Rumble, YouTube, and Odyssey. So feel free to give us a follow. We've been putting out this content for just over 2 years now. So we're on Rumble, YouTube, as well as Odyssey. So definitely give us a follow. Obviously, we've had a bit of a jump in our visibility since our Kamala town halls. We did one at the end of September, and then one a couple weeks before the election.
Which I'll just interject right quick and say you should all go back and watch. I think, given the results, I mean, obviously you can say that, history is written by the winners, as they say, but I think given the results, we had some pretty salient and lucid and cogent points about why she was not a good candidate, why we did not support her, and looks like many Americans, looks like a significant number of black men, and I'm going to hazard to guess even more black women than they got exit polling data for, agreed with us. So that's nice to find out.
Yep, and there you go. So make sure to give us a follow on Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey. We live stream currently bi-weekly on weekends. Usually it's been Saturday for a while. Now we've been back on Sundays for a minute. So definitely give us a follow, subscribe. And yeah, definitely those that were kind of on the wrong side, unfortunately, you hate to kind of gloat and rub it in. But maybe this is a good lesson. If you go back and watch our town halls, as Conspiracy Brother was saying, you might have learned a thing or two or gotten some clues on why things went the way they did. So I'm just kind of leave it there and not gloat too much. We don't, get into some of that. But yeah, I'd like to go ahead and get over to our special guest, Pastor William Green. Pastor William Green is also the founder of the Mordecai Mission, based out in New York City. And he was actually one of our panelists on the both of our Black women and Black men, not for Kamala Harris. And he is joining us tonight as an official guest on the Uncomfy Truths podcast that once again partnered with the Not for Harris Coalition. And hey, what up, Brianna? Welcome. What up, Doe? Most definitely appreciate you. So I definitely like to have Pastor Green come on real quick. Just tell us once again a little bit more for the audience that maybe I know some might be familiar with you from the Kamala Town Hall, but for those that are new, Pastor Green, feel free to tell us about yourself and the work you're doing.
Thank you for having me again tonight. My name is Pastor William Green. I'm the founder of the organization called the Mordecai Mission. And the purpose of our organization is to get Christians elected from the schoolhouse to the White House, which is sorely needed. And I really believe with this election that we are headed in that direction. I want to say concerning the Mordecai mission, it is much needed because as Christians, we don't want to be involved in politics. We want to be involved in government. And the reason why I say politics, not government, because politics is dirty, as we have seen. But Christians need to be involved in government, and stop being ignorant and saying that Christians should not. We need Christians in all forms of government, from the White House to the school boards, mayor's offices, governor's offices, Congress, and the Senate. It's time that we come out the four walls of the church and stop singing and shouting and get involved in government and making a difference in this country.
Thank you. Great words. Most definitely. I think right now we're at a point, especially with the statement. Clearly, the majority of we the people made this past Tuesday that we do need order, God, family, freedom back in the White House. And I think I feel like Christians who originally founded the Republican Party, uh, uh, along with Frederick Douglass and many other abolitionists, had these Judeo-Christian value uh, principles. We were the anti-slavery party, and also too, as well as a lot of Christians leading the fight, including Bevelyn Betty Williams. I know she was, before they kind of hit her with all the lawfare, she was uh, advocating and putting together her own sort of Christian-led party. But I do agree with the whole, like, Christians do need to take back the Republican Party, because they did found it and did work with Abe Lincoln to free the slaves.
Yes, we
Depending
do.
how you. So those are just the facts. Once again, I still have my criticisms of the Republican Party. I think that the neocon, the Dick Cheneys and John McCain's, that's, while they're still there, there's those Liz Cheneys in the world. We still have, we still got a lot of work to do. There's still those that are kind of just, more self-interest first and power first that are in there, but at the same time, at least MAG is the majority. Conspiracy Brother, anything you want to add to that before we dive into election talk?
No, I say I'd agree with both of you guys about the moral direction of the party and the need for if Christian people are to be involved in politics, as the pastor said, it's important to be involved in government and not the politics. The politics is the problem that we all find when we look at government. That's the part that kind of distracts us all from the part of governing that is important to all of us. It's the politics. It's the corruption. It's the the backdoor deals. It's all that other stuff. But if we can see past that and move past that to get involved in actually governing, then we can get ahead of some of these bad legislations that we see, some of these issues that involve infringements on family rights and parent and child protections that we looked at as either because they were constitutionally protected or assumed to be, or the rights that parents had over their children as a constitutional protection or an assumed constitutional protection that appear to be eroded away. And so, yeah, it is important for everybody. And I would even go as far as to say, even if you don't identify as a Christian or, of any specific religious faith, but if you find yourself having a moral conviction to what is right or wrong, that you get involved in governance, because, it is important to have a moral person having a positive impact on legislation for those of us in the majority who have a moral view of the world and how it should work. And that was it for me. Conservative brother, I can't hear you if you're talking. I can hear clicking now, so maybe I can hear you now, but no words. I don't know what happened, but I will I'll take over just slightly while we figure out what's going on here. So as everyone should know by now, the 2024 election or presidential election has it's come to a close, and Donald Trump has been reelected the 47th president of the United States. He is the first president since Grover Cleveland to be reelected after let's see, I'll do a screen share and pull up this from the Hill. He's the first president to be reelected after I guess a break in their 2 terms. So let's look over some of this. Okay. From the Hill. And the Hill has we'll go to their homepage. But the Hill has an electoral map. Or at least they had an electoral map. They had an electoral map to kind of explain everything. So this is essentially, because I looked to kind of track my own memory, but I believe this is essentially Trump had, I think, 310 in 2016. And so I think Hillary Clinton had 229. So Trump won by approximately the same margin. I believe he won the same states. I think he won Arizona and Nevada the same. And the difference here now, the Democrats have picked up 3 seats in the Senate. Republicans have the Democrats have lost 3 seats in the Senate. Republicans have picked up 3 seats, and so they've got the majority at 52. I know they were showing 53 at one point, so I'm not sure what happened. And it looks like the Democrats are going to claim a majority in the House. So Trump is going to have essentially all 3 branches of government, or the Republicans are going to have all 3 branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, because the Supreme Court is also conservative. So Trump, by all accounts, appears to have a mandate because, winning by this margin with this composition of government is certainly going to be interpreted as a mandate, all things considered. I don't know, Pastor Green, if you want to comment or anything on any of the information I'm pulling up right now, or if you have any thoughts about any of it. I was trying to find the electoral map.
Yeah. Well, I really feel this shows that the last election was stolen from Donald Trump. I mean, when you think that Trump won, this is the third election that Trump won. I really believe the third election that he won. Last election, we saw all these mail-in ballots was a nuance for Joe Biden's so-called win. They used these ballots to steal this election. And this time, the people made it too big to rig. But we saw all the cheating that was attempted with these polls. You had the poll in Iowa saying, oh, Kamala Harris is going to win. And then you had all these other posters, which shows you why we can't believe in both the polls, nor can we believe in the mainstream media, because they all lie. And the people saw right through it, and they made sure that it wasn't going to be stolen this time. And I yield.
And I think that's a good point you brought up. Because when you look at, and it was something I wanted to, so let's see, I'll bring up two more. I wanted to bring up exit polling, but not exit polling just yet. I wanted to look at the voter turnout between 2020 and now, because I think that's an important point you brought up. And I think a lot of people have started to notice the peculiarity of it all. I've heard people mention that even on, I don't watch MSNBC personally, but I saw it mentioned on one of these compilation videos I watched. And whatever, it was one of the, or it might have been CNN, which I also don't watch. But one of the hosts was saying something like, where were all those voters from Joe Biden? So let's see. Got from Pew Research. This is voter turnout from 2018 to 2020. So let's see. I'll share this tab, and let's see if I can find the specific election. So if we look here, it says smaller shares voted by absentee or mail-in ballot in 2022 than in 2020. Percent of validated voters who cast their ballot. So it says, 32% voted by mail-in or absentee for Donald Trump in 2020. 38 voted in person on election day. 30 in person early in 2020. And then for Joe Biden, 17% in person on election day, 24% in person early, and 58% by mail or absentee. So that's, 2/3 of all Joe Biden voters in 2020 voted in person on election day. 2/3 voted by mail-in or absentee ballot, where you see a pretty even split among Trump supporters, 32%, 30%, and 38%. Now, what I wanted to actually see, though, is total numbers of voters. And that might require me to look up another because it's important that we, this at the time it didn't make sense to me, and so given the bulk of the information we have now post 2020, right? We have a post 2024. So if you look at the so I'm sharing this tab now, and conservative brother is not back yet. But when we look at this tab here, what we can see is that Joe Biden won approximately 51% of the vote, is what it says, with 81.2 million votes. And Trump had 74.2 million votes. That is what we are told. That's what we're told. We're told Joe Biden won Georgia. Right. We're told Joe Biden won Georgia. We're told Joe Biden won Arizona. We're told that the man who signed NAFTA won Michigan, which NAFTA destroyed the auto industry in this country and a lot of other manufacturing jobs in the Rust Belt. That man won Michigan, won Wisconsin, won Pennsylvania. That is what we're told. Okay. So 84 million. Now, if we go and look on the Hill, back to their voter turnout, and we go back to share this tab, it says that Harris has 71 million votes, 71.2 million votes. Donald Trump has 74.7. So that is approximately the exact same number of voters and votes that he got. It's about 500,000 more votes than he got in 2020. Kamala Harris has about 81,000? So no, that's 10 million. She's got about 10 million less votes than Joe Biden had in 2020. What could have actually, this alone, just to, because there's a lot of Democrat finger pointing going around where, they want to say it's the black man who didn't vote for her. I didn't vote for her, so I have no problem saying that. As a black man, I didn't vote for her, and I don't.
Neither did I. Neither did I.
So it's not an issue that I'm afraid to. I didn't vote for her. They say Hispanic men didn't vote for her. I'm sure those Hispanic men who didn't vote for her are not ashamed to say. They say white women didn't vote for her. And as I've heard, the Democratic Party has not received a majority of white voters since 1964 when Lyndon Johnson was president. So what else could account for 10 million drop in votes? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. What it is, one
this
thing
is the part
this
about
election, this election gives validation why we should not have mail-in ballots. And I think the Democrats saw their plan backfiring with these mail-in ballots. Because think about this. Republicans did the same thing this time around. They encouraged people to vote with mail-in ballots. And when we did, look what happened. Now they burnt ballots in ballot boxes in Oregon, and I believe it was in California. Because they played that game and we beat them, and we was going to beat them at their own game. So now they start burning ballots. And we see how corrupt this is, because look at Arizona. They're still counting ballots 5 days after the election is already over.
And they finally just announced Trump won it. They just announced that a few hours ago. Trump won Arizona.
Right.
Crazy.
But it's this whole debacle of mail-in ballots. This was the only way that the Democrats could have won. And this is how they stole the election in 2020. So what did they do to ensure that they would win again? They brought in all these illegals, and they tried to create a whole new voting block of illegal migrants. So once again, the people saw through that and people voted. So there's one last point I want to make on this. You notice when Trump was ahead on election night in 2020, and then when people went to sleep, how did those numbers change? Trump was winning by a landslide against Joe Biden. But when people woke up the next morning, now we see Trump behind. And you look at, perfect example, Georgia. He lost by what? 10,000 votes. You look in other states, Trump lost by what? 10,000 votes. There cannot be such a coincidence as that. The Democrats stole it with these ballots. The voters did not disappear. It was the ballots that disappeared. The illegal duplicated ballots that we saw the Democrats doing. You know, we saw how they were cheating when they supposed to have watching the vote count. What did they do in Michigan during 2020? They started putting paste boards on the window so no one could look in. I mean, this stuff was blatant. So yeah, you know what? We should gloat, because there's a saying goes, he who laughs last laughs best. So let's laugh and let's gloat.
Yeah, I think some gloating is in order.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm back, guys. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. But yeah. I guess my initial thoughts. I'm not sure what you guys covered. Obviously, the dust is starting to settle. I see we're about 2 seats away from a majority in the House. I'm looking interesting. I'm looking on Google, and I know me and Conspiracy Brother had this talk before, where of course Google is just really late on reporting, even though the Hill, like on election night, the Hill was just on top of it, and at least seemed the most centrist as far as at least fair bias. You know, they're not like center right. But I think with the House, I'm looking on Google real quick. Let's see here. What the heck? Hold on a second. Okay, the House. This is so weird. It's showing election data is temporarily unavailable, and I'm trying to reload the House results. Still shows the president results. Now it's showing. I don't know. It might be my computer again. I don't know. But I've never seen a message like this before. Like, I don't know. But either way, looks like we're about to get the House. So I don't know what else there's to say. I know we're gonna get in. I don't know if you guys got into. We're gonna get into some liberal meltdown, so we can kind of do some reactions on that. But I don't know what else needs to be said on just the fact. You know, we're gonna get into kind of what Kamala did wrong and her whole, thing. But Conspiracy Brother, anything you wanted to add before we get into these liberal meltdown reactions?
Well, I still got to find those videos, but just this kind of like what the pastor was saying. You went to bed in 2020 with Trump winning all these states by margins of 4 and 5%, and the votes were 94, 95% in. So I'm not a math expert, as I don't know if this is going to be updating something. I don't know if there's new results coming in, but you went to bed and you were sleeping. You're saying, hey, I don't know what's going on. I got somewhere to be Wednesday, work. I can't stay up. But I can't imagine that Trump is losing this, given the amount of people who are left and the amount of votes already cast. Why aren't they just calling this right now? And you wake up and Joe Biden is president. And so a part of me stayed up, because I just wanted to see if they would try it again. What would happen again if we could document what happened. And so, being able to be up and kind of see the votes trickle in and then finally call in Pennsylvania, which really gave Trump the edge he needed to win. It's interesting, as I said, now you look and you have to ask, let's just say we take it at face value that 2020 wasn't rigged, it wasn't stolen. And we just look at it at face value, it wasn't stolen. And it really was just a regular old-fashioned election. How do you account for the fact that Kamala Harris got 10 million less votes than Joe Biden, right? What makes a person that much less popular than the president they served under in the same administration that is currently in power right now? If I'm expected to believe that Joe Biden was such a popular alternative and Trump is such a monstrous option and evil and fascist and Hitlerian or totalitarian or whatever, fascistic, whatever adjectives you want to use to describe Trump, how do you account for that? And at face value, again, just to be nice and to try to make a point, do we have to lay all the blame at the feet of the Democratic Party for whatever Trump does here on out, whatever it might be? If he is as bad as the Democrats have portrayed him to be, if he is worse, does the fault and the blame ultimately lie with the Democratic Party because they were not able to capture the same margin of voters who apparently exist and are engaged? And I'm not aware of 10 million Americans having died over the last 4 years, even with COVID. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that part.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I'll leave it with that. I do want to just play this small clip since we're talking about this. It's like a small clip of a bakery in Sterling Heights, Michigan. They do a straw poll with cookies about the election. So this is a pre-election video from AFP News. And I just think it's interesting given what we're talking about. And I think, the irregularity of 2020. So I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to share that screen. And then it's like a 2-minute video. And then I'll let conservative brother have the screen share back.
Okay. I also got the Dave Lickman video queued up so we can get right into that. Or Alan Lickman. I got that video queued up after. So.
Okay. Here.
What was that? I can fill these up, right? Yes. What was that? I can fill these up, right? Yes. I don't want to be just around the very top part.
I just wanted to pause so we could see those numbers. I'll read the sign. Please place your vote for your favorite candidate. Here's how to place your vote. Simply purchase as many cookies or cupcakes for your favorite candidate. Each one will be added to the candidate's total at the end of each night. Quote, may the best tasting candidate win. Republican, Donald Trump. Democrat, Kamala Harris. Or if you want a third party, you've got Lions head coach Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell got as many votes as Harris.
Dan Campbell has as many votes as Kamala Harris.
Many cookie votes.
And I would be surprised if he ended up beating her before the night was over. I mean, before the actual election was over.
Sure he did.
Yeah.
Funny.
So here's more.
So every election term, this has kind of so far predicted the presidency, except for 2020. That didn't turn out so well,
Oh, let's pause
close.
it there.
So
hey, except for 2020. How interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess these 10 million mystery Biden voters, or at least in Michigan, whatever ones were in Michigan. Yeah, maybe they didn't have a pulse or maybe an address or, to go by the shop and purchase the cookies. Very interesting.
And that's my point, right? She said every election this has been accurate except for 2020. If you look at the look on her face when she says this, her eyes are telling you something that her mouth is afraid to say. I've actually, and me and my wife talked about it, we've actually been to this bakery. We got some actually, it's a pretty good bakery. Yeah, we got some sandwiches and some baked goods. Actually, pretty nice Italian bakery. But yeah, and that was the thing I wanted to kind of be heard. 2020, if you watch a lot of these straw polls, 2020 is the anomaly for a lot of these places that have called these elections, and 2020 is always an aberration.
Buttercream.
Whip.
Whip. Yeah. It's all paid for. I'll stamp it for you. Your initials.
VA.
Okay.
They love it. They do love it. I mean, some not so much, but they love it. They'll definitely stripe a conversation up, but you got to kind of keep it minimal. We don't like to talk politics too much. This explains it all. They'll order them too for like election parties or whatever they're having. So I know I'll be ordering them. I'm having an election party, so.
Conspiracy brother, I wonder how many people, if I had kind of known about that shop, go in there and buy like 10, 20 Harris cookies and just throws them away. But that's just me being petty.
There may be people who do that kind of thing. There may be people who do that kind of thing, but my guess is that most people are being pretty honest and accurate about what happens, and you're going to buy as many cookies as you eat, or you intend to eat, or even if you intend to give away. And here's the results are what they are. Trump won Michigan, and Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin have voted the same for the past 20 years or 4 or 5 elections, however it works out. Whatever it is, they voted the same for a very long time, those 3 states. So, you win one, you essentially can guarantee you win them all. And so, but I'll let you screen share if you want. It's if you want to show, we can, but I said the videos that I had were for the meltdowns. I hadn't pulled those up yet.
Yeah, and actually, I think my computer is running a little. It overheated a bit, so you're gonna have to just post the rest of those videos in the chat again because I lost the chat, and then I'll just pull them up one at a time. I try and pull up too many tabs. That's what kind of overheated my computer. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into this. Unless Conspiracy Brother, you want to give any context to those not familiar with historian Alan Lichtman?
So I don't know a lot about him, but he's a historian. I think he's a professor, but I could be wrong. But he's got these 13 keys that he has used to predict presidential elections. And let's see, if a candidate, let's see, it's something like if a candidate has 6 of them, or he's missing 6 of them, he predicts they won't win. So let's see if one is party. I'm not going to read what they all consist of, but 1 is party mandate, 2 is contest, 3 is incumbency, 4 is third party, 5 is short-term economy, 6 is long-term economy, 7 is policy change, 8 is social unrest, 9 is scandal, 10 is foreign 10 is foreign/military failure, 11 is foreign/military success, 12 is incumbent charisma, and 13 is challenger charisma. So it's some combination of, if you have 16, if you have 6 of those missing, you won't win, or something like that, he says. And he's developed these 13 keys, and he's used them to predict 40 years worth of presidential elections.
Well, he seems pretty smug and full of himself, but
very
pass judgment. So he gotta
very
he gotta whoop a reality. Sorry, I'm going into comments. All right, let's go ahead and watch this.
Okay.
I'm very confident that Harris will win because the keys don't easily change. They look at the big picture of incumbent strength and performance. I'm an historian. I'm not psychic Gene Dixon with a crystal ball. I'm not Speaker Mike Johnson who claims the Almighty talks to him. Of course, patterns of history could break. But the truth is, you never know in advance whether any particular set of events is big enough and unprecedented enough to change the pattern of history. That's why in advance you can't change the keys. And my gosh, they've worked for 40 years. No other system comes close.
Wow.
So before you click the next video, the interesting thing to take into account is that he actually predicted Harris was going to lose after he swapped her in. After they swapped her in for Biden, he predicted she would lose. I don't know if he got a conversation from the higher ups in the party or what happened, but he changed his tune. He actually predicted she would lose. And then he changed his tune and said, no, she's going to win or whatever. So I don't know, I guess because he said she would win much more loudly, and that was the last thing he said, that's considered his true prediction, but he actually said she would lose. So you can play that next one.
Is this next one Alan Lichtman got getting it wrong? Is this a different video?
Yeah, that's a different video. So it's him actually getting it. He's finding out because he does a podcast or something. It's him finding out that his prediction was incorrect. Him finding out that Harris was losing real time.
Well, here's the thing though. You already mentioned how he said that he initially said after Harris swapped for Biden that Harris would lose, and then he got like the call.
Well, that's what I'm just assuming. I don't know that he got it, but that's the only reason I can assume that he changed his mind.
Okay.
Like you said, the keys don't change.
All right, let's watch. I don't know if we watch this whole clip, but let's watch the first few minutes, and then Pastor Green would like to get your thoughts, before we get into some more liberal meltdowns. All right, here we go.
He's been called the Nostradamus of elections. He's correctly predicted 9 of the last 10. That is until the early hours of Wednesday morning, when CNN predicted Donald Trump would win the presidency. We're talking about Professor Alan Lichtman. He says his 13 keys are how he makes his predictions for the White House. Here's the moment he realized his prediction was wrong.
I'm starting to get a little nervous. Yeah. She needs to make up 170,000 votes.
I don't see it. The big Democratic counties are mostly in.
Well, yeah. Shit.
I just don't see it. Good thing I have nothing to do tomorrow.
Yeah, I took off work tomorrow.
And I'm not doing any interviews.
Good.
I'm done with that.
So what happens to the keys now? Well, Professor Alan Lichtman is here with us tonight to tell us what he thinks went wrong. Professor, thank you for joining us tonight. I mean, we've talked many times. Were the keys wrong, or was your interpretation off this time?
I think the fundamental problem was the keys, not my interpretation. No one's convinced me that was wrong. There are unique features. I've always said, some unique features could break the patterns of history, and I think that's happened here. First of all, a unique feature specific to this election. And you heard me say this before. I was very critical of the Democrats for openly and viciously trashing their sitting president right out in public. I have never seen that before. before, and I've studied politics since the founding, and we saw Biden's approval rating plummet as they were doing that. I think that extended beyond Biden to weaken any Democratic candidate since they're discrediting their own administration. Secondly, it rendered problematic one of my keys, the contest key, since we couldn't have a primary, but the Democrats did unite around Harris, and I turned the key in their favor, but we had never seen anything like that before, and that was problematic. But more importantly, are trends that are long-term and affect the long-term future of our democracy and the keys, because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding that based on governance whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years. And we've seen the explosion of some trends that have existed before, but not to this extent. Disinformation. You know, Elon Musk is, I don't know how many hundreds of billions he has. He has been the director of misinformation. 2 billion views.
Okay, let's stop it right there. We can watch a little bit more, but Pastor Green, I'd love to get your thoughts. You can already kind of see where this Lichtman guy kind of is leaning. Just the whole Elon Musk and the misinformation. And really, if anything, if Elon didn't buy Twitter, we still be in a sea of misinformation. So I can already see what this guy, like, I kind of lost, his credibility went down a lot just by what he just mentioned. But Pastor Green, your thoughts on these election gurus? Oh, Pastor Green, I think you're on mute. Hello? Conspiracy brother, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know.
Pastor Green just
Green.
unmuted. He did just unmute, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can't hear you, Pastor Green. Well, yeah. Yeah, you want to give your thoughts, conspiracy brother? Because I already see where.
well, yeah, but you can see how he said, you know, he originally had him losing, and he switched because he thought it wouldn't hurt him. You know,
He got the call. That's what I think.
Right. Well, yeah, like I said, you know, because it's all media manipulation. They like I've said on the show, like we said on one of our other shows, they believe that so long as they can control what you hear and what they say and what you hear and what you see, that will affect outcomes. And so that's how they behave. And they have been, you know, late to recognize that isn't the case. And it doesn't work that way.
Am I back in?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you're back. We can hear you now.
You know, the point I wanted to make is it's a biblical analogy. You notice this gentleman kept referring to his plan and how he does things as keys. And it seemed like God snatched the keys from the devil again.
Facts. Facts.
You know, because these people, and you know, it's amazing the hypocrisy that comes out of all of these people's mouths. He has the nerve to say that Elon Musk spread misinformation. And as you all pointed out, if it wasn't for Elon Musk buying Twitter, we would have never heard this. But see, this is why we are learning as American citizens that we cannot allow the mainstream biased media to control the narrative anymore. And who is controlling the mainstream media right now? Bill Gates. Bill Gates. He has a conglomerate of studios that he controls, along with him, the World Economic Forum, and they tell us what they want us to hear. When you listen to such media outlets as ABC News, you hear the bias and you hear the lies. And they will have been lying in our faces for 4 straight years. Lying in our faces. They're telling us the economy is on a recovery. That's a lie. We've been in a recession for 3.5 years. And people know it. But they'll tell you Bidenomics is working. They lie to our faces, just like how they said, "Oh, Joe Biden, he's healthy and fine. Oh, we can barely keep up with him." You can't keep up with that. They've been lying to our faces. And the people have spoken and said, we're not going to go with the lies no more. There's so many lies that the mainstream media said on behalf of the Democratic Party. The border is secure. How can the border be secure and 13 million people just come through here illegally? And more were trying to get here just last week before the election. Everyone in the world knows America does not have a secure border. So I'm just glad that the lies have been exposed, and people like this who continue to perpetrate lies or who continue to make up lies that we see, right? We see right through the lies for so long, and now the day of reckoning has happened for them. So I don't feel sorry for these Democrats. In fact, I'm just relieved that they've been defeated and we can never let them rise up again.
Amen, Pastor. Amen. Let's continue the rest of this clip. Give any final thoughts, and then Conspiracy Brother, if you could post the link to the next liberal meltdown, and we could cue that up. All right, so here we go.
Of his spreading of disinformation, not just about the economy, but about immigrants, about minorities. We've never seen disinformation at this scale. Next, we have never seen to this scale the agitation of three trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia. The first anti-immigrant law was 1798, and Donald Trump wants to revive it. First it was the French, then the Germans, then the Jews, then the Mexicans, then the Muslims. There's always another. And of course, racism, we didn't even begin to dismantle Jim Crow until the 1960s, and it's still to some extent survived. Women didn't vote until 1920. So that calls into question the whole premise behind the keys and behind our democracy.
Well, if it calls into question the premise of the keys, what about the fact that pollster Nate Silver says that he used your keys to predict a Trump win?
Nate Silver has been criticizing the keys since he attacked me for my correct prediction early of Obama's reelection in 2011. He has a vested interest in going against the keys because they put him out of business. And look what he did this year. This is typical Nate Silver. He says Harris is marginally ahead. So the election is going to be, so close, 50-50. But it could go either way, with the swing states going one way to one candidate or the other. And he says, my gut favors Trump, but don't listen to my gut. So no matter what happens, Nate Silver can't be wrong, and he can't be right because his predictions are meaningless. I admit I was wrong because I go out on a limb and tell you who's going to win. I don't try to squirm out of it. And as we're having this discussion, I'm very squarely trying to consider why I went wrong, what it means for the future of our keys and the future of our democracy.
Given the fact that you talk about some of the disinformation, which seems to be the trajectory of a lot of things that's done with the democracy, do you intend, Professor Alan Lichtman, to change your keys or adjust to an additional, maybe a 14th one to adjust for that factor?
I don't intend to change my keys on the fly. That's a recipe for disaster, particularly when these critiques come post-hope. It's very easy to say what you should do when you know the answer already. Much more difficult to do it in advance. And the keys go all the way back to 1860 in development and back to 1984 predictively. So I'm not going to very quickly change the keys based upon some critique that comes after they know what happened. But I'm very seriously going to reconsider. And I'm also wondering, are we going to have a free and fair election in 2028, which would render the keys irrelevant, but much more, threaten our democracy? That's up in the air.
Well, Monday morning quarterbacks, you're on notice from Alan Lichtman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, actually, the Monday morning quarterbacks gave you a run for your money, Lichtman. And especially, brother, if you wanted to jump in and just, this guy, I already knew he was kind of a clown, but, this is.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely a clown. He's definitely a clown. But, I mean, you think about it. You expect me to believe that there is a legitimate threat to democracy being sworn in as president on January 20th. But nobody, nowhere, is trying to impede it. You see what I'm saying? It's just weird. It's a weird bit of mental gymnastics that is controlling it or coordinating this whole situation, because that doesn't make any sense. Makes absolutely no sense. And that's the last one we'll listen to him, because I think that was good enough. We got two to give the perspective, pre-election and post-election. So I think that's good enough. But yeah, I mean, it's it's just weird. It's really weird to me that he essentially, and him and Nate, and so he kind of, with the 538, he got he got kind of big from that, and so I guess maybe they have some competing predictive models about who is going to be president or not.
Okay. Could you very I had enough of this guy. But why don't you share, I know you have a few liberal meltdown, maybe reaction videos in mind. Maybe for the sake of time, let's get at least one good one. Because I know our next topic, we want to talk about what Kamala's campaign did wrong. We definitely dug it. We definitely dug deep on Kamala. Yeah. Everything about her is wrong, obviously. But let's get into one liberal meltdown video, and then we're going to move on to what Kamala's campaign did wrong. So I'm really looking forward to that segment. So let's go ahead and pull this last one up. Here we go. About to enter the 24 hours insane asylum, which is TikTok.
Baby, if you wanted to touch my body, you should have voted for it. TV.
All right. Okay, so this video. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second. All right. When woke liberals realize that Donald Trump won, number 5, the Poor Man's Podcast reacts. So, all right, here we go, y'all. And then, Pastor Green, I'd love to get your commentary. We could pause. Let me know if you guys want me to pause. This is a longer video, and we can kind of give our commentary. All right, so here we go. Wow.
Are we serious right now? Are we serious? Fuck the sad music montage, bitch. What in the fuck?
It's kind of going in and out, the volume. I can hear it, and then I can't.
We worked so hard for it. She worked so hard for it. We came here because she wanted.
Is that better? Or are you saying it's going in and out?
It seemed like that was better that time.
Okay, let's see if we can get maybe 2-3 minutes in before we
conservative woman. Here's how I'm going to fix your life, okay? So you just got married to your husband. Your husband is blatant, just redneck garbage. You like him, though, for some reason, something is clicking. I'm going to seduce your husband. I'm going to seduce your husband. I'm going to look him in the eye and explain to him that nobody has ever made me feel the way he has. And I'm younger than you, conservative woman that married him. And I'm going to start explaining that I'm just so fun and I like doing fun shit. Because you're probably married and you can't do fun shit. And then once I do that and I implement your fucking marriage arc, he's going to cause some irrational feelings, which is going to establish itself in your marriage problems. And then you're going to be like, why am I doing this shit for a man? This is where we get you. Get you. Because then you're like, why am I supporting a guy that isn't doing anything for me? There you go. All I'm saying right now is that someone in the White House.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we all lost a few brain cells just watching this so far. I know we get through the whole 17 minutes, but I'm already like, part of me is already like, man, President Reagan shouldn't have shut down those insane asylums a few decades ago. We need to bring back those insane asylums. And by the end of the video, I might be on like women don't need to vote anymore. I don't know. I don't know. But anybody's initial thoughts, I'm just, wow. And Pastor Green, conspiracy brother, it's uncomfy truth. So, don't take everything so seriously, whoever listening, But any thoughts so far? We can see if we can try and get through this.
I mean, yeah, we don't have to watch all 17 minutes. But I just think, this is the kind of political climate that the Democratic Party intentionally creates, right? This is a panic. You saw this a lot from the Republicans in the early 2000s. I would say you see this even to some degree with the Republican Party now, depending on who it is. A lot of neocons kind of have this type of mentality, but you create an instability in your electorate, mental instability. It's an emotional instability, and it manifests in these kind of outbursts and this irrational behavior, this irrational thinking, and like I was talking to my kids about this earlier. These people can vote, they can drive, they can own firearms, they can have all kind of access to dangerous materials, vehicles, weapons, tools, whatever, because they're adults and they behave this way, they think this way, they act this way. And as I said, this is the kind of thinking that is encouraged by the political class. It is okay to be upset or disappointed that your candidate lost, right? That's perfectly fine. But to think it is okay or acceptable to record yourself behaving this way is a problem. To break your own stuff, I won't say that's fine, but it is your stuff. I can't tell you what to do with it. But to think it is reasonable to break your own stuff and then post it online for others to see, I think that's a problem. And, I think it shows where society is, where we're heading, and the kind of issues that we're up against for those of us who want society to be better, to function better, for people to be smarter. These people are upset in a way that shows for all of them who claimed that they were making a choice between the lesser of two evils, that they weren't, that they legitimately think Trump is as a unique evil and Kamala Harris is a good, or the Democratic Party is a good. You don't behave this way when you're picking between two evils. You behave this way when you're picking between good and evil, right? Even with me being happy, right? I am not so much happy that Trump won as I am that Kamala Harris lost. And so I'm not, it's not to say that I've done any ridiculous behaviors, because at the end of the day, it's still a presidential election with a president of a country. And ultimately, I know that whether or not I think he's the better option of the two, his ability to do the things that make me happy or would make me most happy are still going to be probably limited to few. But I still think he's the better option between the two. And so it's sickening, it's sad, it's because they want to present, the Democratic Party likes to present itself as the adults, right? The adults in the room, the mature, educated, aware, and politically what do they call that? Astute people, right? We know what's going on. We have we're politically engaged and whatever. We're not just voting because we have some cult of personality. But you don't behave this way unless there's some cult of personality. Crying, you're still an adult. You have a job. You got somewhere to be tomorrow. You got somewhere to be later today. What are you doing behaving like this? This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and anybody who's doing something like this should really do some self-reflection, reevaluation, and soul searching, because this is totally unacceptable behavior.
Great words. Pastor Green, we're going to maybe watch a few more minutes, but any of your initial thoughts so far on this sort of wicked secular?
I do want to share a thought I want to share a scripture from the Bible. Jesus says Satan is a power and the prince of the air. And what does that scripture mean? It means that Satan controls the minds of people. And when you see people acting like this, it is evidence that Satan is controlling their minds. These are the same, look at it. The same people who are acting this crazy over the election are the same people who think men can get pregnant. You see? So the Bible teaches how a man thinks determines how a man will behave. So we see how the devil has warped the minds of people. So much so that you're seeing a phenomena of mental illness and evil and wickedness that we have never seen before. And, with the help of the internet and social media, so much more is being exposed. The minds of people are controlled by the devil. You look at this election. When have you ever seen families split up over an election? When have you seen friends who've been close for 20 and 30 years split up because of a presidential candidate? This is what it's come to. And it's all biblical. Even when you look at the shameful actions of pastors behind the pulpits, especially in these black churches, how for 30 pieces of silver, they betrayed the Lord for filthy gain, and said, "Oh, when it came to Kamala Harris, this Jezebel, I'm with her." So it's all coming to light, and as the Bible says, what men do in the dark, God will bring to the light. So all of men's crazy thoughts are coming to the light. So and the old saying applies here: when people show you who they are, believe it. People are showing you they are crazy. Believe it.
Oh yeah. Mic drop, Pastor Green. And yeah, I just think this is just more and more evidence that we are in a spiritual war. And unfortunately, the left tools is exploiting a lot of these young, naive voters, and just really the role of them watching the mainstream media, just the lack of morals, and just getting to a place where they're just reacting like this is normal. So I think we're just thank God for libs of TikTok for exposing this more and more. But yeah, we're just at a really crazy place where the attention economy, people wanting this attention, and really just leading them to act this sort of way. So I got a whole lot more I can say, but let's see if we can get through maybe another 2-3 minutes. Maybe midway if we're lucky, then we can move on to what went wrong with the Kamala campaign. So let's watch a little bit more of this.
My doors are open for you if we need a safe house. I am so confused right now. The amount of girls that are coming up on my For You page talking about we don't have any rights anymore. What? School. I can get a job. I can do everything a man can do.
If my hospital can't find enough nurses and they
She was actually pretty based. I don't know how she got lumped in here. Hold on.
I can vote. To go onto this wonderful app and speak whatever I feel like. That's my card telling me I need an oil change. Anyways. What rights am I losing? The only rights we're talking about are allowing men to come in the bathroom with me and play in women's sports, and the right to kill an unborn child. I'm sorry, you're crazy. So, you needed a reason to unfollow me. There it is. I think.
Hey, I gotta give old girl give her props. We can kind of leave it there unless you guys want to watch some more, but big ups to her. I don't know how she got lumped in with the compilation. But any other thoughts, gentlemen, before we head over to word salad?
Yeah, we can go over to the word salad.
All right. But good for her. She gonna get her a nice husband, and be a. All right. So, all right, y'all. Once again, y'all watching Uncomfy Truths podcast. Feel free to subscribe to us on Rumble, as well as Odyssey and YouTube. At Uncomfy Truths Politics Talks with myself and Conspiracy Brother. We broadcast bi-weekly on Sundays. We're here with special guest Pastor William Green from the Mordecai Mission. But feel free to give us a follow, like, subscribe, check out our Kamala Town Hall, where if you want to know what happened, what went wrong, we did over 4 hours total telling you why. All right, so let's hop right in here. Let's see what the latest is on the Kamala campaign. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Total $1 billion spent on this Kamala Harris campaign. I wonder how many of that came from the Joe Biden fund, collection plate, if you will. So I think obviously we've torn apart Kamala time and time again. We've done the town halls. So I really would like for this to be a conversation on from day one. I mean, the first mistake she made was swapping in for for Biden. But I think there was as much of a crap show this was from the start. There were still a bunch of plenty of mistakes, like picking Tim Walz for one. And now we're getting all these latest updates where people are kind of doing like a political autopsy. A lot of things that we were talking about that people are just coming to realize. So yeah, the floor is open. Who would like to go first and just talk? Hey, maybe Pastor Green want to go first and talk. What do you think? there's a lot of reasons. What do you think are maybe the top 3 reasons that this Kamala campaign failed? Obviously, her who she is as a person, her whole history, we all know that. But what were some other things that this campaign just was getting wrong from the start?
Well, the number one thing, the only thing that the Democrats focused on was abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they think black people have a short memory. And what am I referring to? We survived so much in this country. We survived Margaret Sanger's Negro Project, as well as the Tuskegee experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And black people are not interested in killing their babies. But this is all that she spoke about: abortion, abortion, abortion. She didn't want to focus on the economy because her and Joe Biden destroyed the economy. They didn't want to talk about table issues. What I mean by table issues, being able to put food on the table. She didn't want to talk about that because she know the Biden administration made that harder and harder. There's one thing I want to point out that was unique concerning the Biden administration and the 4 years that they were in there. People were not aware fully how during last year alone, in the year 2023, there were 44 food processing plants that were burnt to the ground.
I remember that. I remember hearing about that.
Now, how does a brick and mortar building get burnt to the ground? I mean, let's think about that.
And a lot of these places were also with livestock and cattle that were just getting cold and killed. Yep.
All the time. Each and every. So, we saw how this wicked administration was even trying to destroy the food supply. And see, no one wanted to address that. So, and Kamala Harris with her crazy and nasty lies when it comes to food, washing collard greens in the bathtub. I mean, come on. I mean, really? You cannot wash collard greens in the bathtub and put them in the pot and put them in your mouth. I mean, who does that? But it just showed us how foolish this woman was. Only thing she could do was laugh and cackle. She couldn't speak to the issues because she don't even know what the issues are. I mean, she said the most ridiculous things that no other presidential candidate would even say when it came to the border. When she was questioned about the border, she said, I believe it was the news commentator from NBC News asked her, "Have you been to the border yet?" And what was her response? "Well, I haven't been to Europe either, so what's the point?" I mean, and this is the mentality of this woman. This woman was in the White House. And people saw this and said, no way, no how. But yet, she thought she could pull the wool over people's eyes, and people were not having it. I mean, this woman, like Cardi B, could not speak from the heart. If the monitor wasn't working, they couldn't say anything. And people looked at this and said, there's no way we're going to put this brainless woman in the White House. She could not articulate the issues. She had no policy. And then when she came up with one, it was so insulting. How did she want to court black men? By offering them weed? I mean, it was ridiculous. This was the most offensive, most idiotic presidential campaign in history. And I yield.
Amen, Pastor. Oh man, and don't forget about free weed. Legalized weed. The little $50 Wi-Fi desert voucher. 25,000 tax credit toward a house. Inflation just shoots back up, and you wonder why. I think once again, I think Tim Walz was another one as well. Obviously, the Democrats still had this sort of paranoia about the pro-Palestine mob of the party, where basically, I think if Josh Stein potentially, things could have definitely turned out different for Pennsylvania. So the whole just jumping over Josh Stein to get this weirdo out in Minnesota who kept people inside with military police shooting paintball pellets at you, with a COVID snitch hotline, and putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, and all his trips to China with minors, praising the CCP. Yeah, that's definitely a person I want. That's a heartbeat away from the White House, or second in line from the White House. So
and I'm gonna make one more point. One more
yeah,
point.
go right ahead. Yeah.
I think Josh Shapiro
Or Josh
influence
Shapiro. Yeah, that's what I meant.
is highly overrated, because let's remember something about Josh Shapiro. The only reason why he's in the governor's office in Pennsylvania, because of those mail-in ballots. Remember, in Pennsylvania, they were counting ballots 4 days after the election, and that's how he got in there.
Yep. So he cheated. He was one of them 2020 installments. One of those 2020 imports.
Exactly.
Okay, I forgot about that. Conspiracy brother, I see you're back. Any thoughts on as we continue to rip away the facade of the Kamala campaign? Obviously, we already ripped into Kamala herself, but what about this campaign? Like, what didn't they get wrong? Your thoughts.
I think honestly, from the moment she decided to run for president in 2019, there was a disaster. She could have been a senator for the rest of her life, and everybody would have just celebrated her because she was, Indian or black or whatever, and she'd have been in there for probably at least another 20 years and whatever, and nobody would have thought anything bad about her because she could have just blended into the background and had a few of her sister girl moments against Republican whoever's every so often and been a meme, and that would have been it. And she'd have been fine.
And continue tearing up California in the shadows, and none
well,
none
yeah,
of the wiser.
But I mean, they like that apparently. They like that over there. They so even that wouldn't have been a problem because they love that apparently. I mean, that seems to be, for as an outsider, outside observer, California seems to love those types of politicians. So she could have had a long, illustrious career being lionized as a fixture in American politics and government and in the Senate and a trailblazer and whatever. And she decided to run for president because she thought she would follow the Barack Obama playbook of having basically, no national office history to speak of, and then I'll run for president, and I'll win off of the strength that I don't really have a record to speak of, and then after I win, then I'll just be a tool of Wall Street or the military-industrial complex or some special interest group or lobby or something, whatever, and black people will vote for me because I'm black or I say I'm black and women will vote for me because I'm a woman and whatever. And she miscalculated because she does have a history because she was a prosecutor. Barack Obama wasn't a prosecutor. He was a college professor and he was a community organizer. And he was not a prosecutor. And also he could string sentences together, coherent sentences together, and had, I think they overstate his charisma. I really do. I think people misunderstand Black people's desire to feel a sense of belonging within America, right? Like a lot of Black people don't. I'm not going to say every single Black person doesn't necessarily feel like belonging here, but there's a certain type of belonging that Black people can feel in America that maybe not what you would consider the normal patriotism, right? It's kind of almost like a corrupt patriotism or like a bastardized patriotism where we like our own kind of America, that we kind of, the experience that we have or tend to have. And so for Obama, he was the opportunity for a lot of Black people who put stock into him to feel like they had become members of the greater America, right? Now we're really Americans. We got a Black president. And so they overlooked a lot of the weird stuff that he did, or a lot of the corny stuff that he did that, most Black people don't do or don't talk like because we weren't raised by white people. You know what I'm saying? Like because he was raised by his white mother or white grandparents.
Right.
He didn't have really any experience.
The nigga was
right.
corny.
He didn't have any experience with Black American people at all because he was raised by a Indonesian stepfather and white mother or his white grandparents. And so like he don't have any Black American anything in his family. So they overstate that. His charisma and connection with Black people, but he still had some charisma and political instincts. She's almost like autistic or something. Like she doesn't have any social awareness, right? Yeah. She laughs really at uncomfortable moments. She doesn't appear to connect with people in a genuine way. Everything seems calculated. She's almost like a cyborg or something, or like I said, like with like maybe like autistic or something, where like you don't really get social cues. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying that more like as a clinical diagnosis. Like she doesn't really pick up on social cues. She's not really able to connect with people in a genuine way. It's more like, oh, this is the facial expressions I memorized. This is how I'm supposed to respond to those facial expressions. You know what I'm saying? Like very calculated.
Manchurian candidate, sure.
Yeah. Like the Manchurian Candidate mixed with Rain Man without any of the savant. Just the autistic, no savant. But
a
like
little bit of this, a little bit of that.
She could have done that, but it's her desire to be a tool of the elites, of the globalists, made her run for president, right? She got Hillary's donor class, or Hillary's donors anointed her as, Hillary's what do you call it? Her heir. She was the heir to the Hillary Clinton donors. And so they anointed her to be the second coming in so many ways. And she failed. She was the number one donor or the number one campaign fundraiser in 2019. And she failed. She got less votes than Pete Buttigieg. She got less votes than Amy Klobuchar, got less Black support than Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. Okay. And Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Significantly less Black support than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. And also too, and then also just want to give a quick shout out to the comments. We got, Krista, Angela say hi, as well as Brianna. And also to that point, I find it really funny that we got Vox, a top Bernie Sanders strategist on why Kamala lost, coming from the guy that got cooed out of the 2016 primary, or who won the primary, and then the donor class decides, no, it's Hillary's turn, and undemocratically push him out. So I thought that was really funny. Also, too, just the fact with Kamala, just the continued celebrity endorsements, the endorsements of Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, neocon warmongers, just the continued slap in the face of the typical. Let's bring in these rap shills, the Glorrillas and the Cardi B's of the world, and then just a continued insult of just, okay, this is all you really think of black people, that you have to bring in these entertainers and make everything into a concert. So I think little optics like that, I mean, those are what we kind of come to expect from the Democrats. But when people just see it like as a desperate, this is all we got to do, bringing in Beyonce, who didn't even want to be there, didn't perform. It's like she got the call. She shows up to, I think, one of Kamala's last rallies in Houston, gives this little watered down, mellow speech. So I think there's just a lot of optics. Those basic things, I think a lot of black people still think about and just see the insult of it all. And then, of course, I think the View was a big loss. Sonny Holston asked the question like, hey, looking back, would you do anything different? Well, nothing comes to mind. And just really just the media, just one media. I could see why they tried to hide her from the media for so long. I mean, she should have just went in there and got destroyed right away. I mean, holding her back, hiding her in the basement didn't work. And then when she finally went on this 40-day media stretch, just one bomb after the other, but yeah, I got a couple articles I want to share real quick before we go to the next topic. But Pastor Green, any any additional thoughts on this Kamala campaign disaster?
Well, like you said, this whole campaign showed you how little the Democrats think of black people. I mean, when black people were asking her, well, what are your policies? She give us Meg the Stallion in Magic City. So
all right. Yeah, that's what else is there to say? I mean, we could do a whole episode on just I'm even doing I might have a video on my Conservative Brother Daily channel. Those guys follow me, Conservative Brother Daily. I do this whole Black Girl Tragic series. So I got part 5 on just the Kamala campaign. So I'm gonna dig into that later this week. Endless material. But I thought this was very interesting, guys. I want to share these 2 articles, maybe get your initial thoughts, and we can move on to the next topic. Oh, crap. But I called about basically after what happened. There's really only 2 more cards they have left to play. Is either they end up killing Biden they end up killing Trump. I think the U.S. deep state. They had that article come out a few days ago. FBI thwarted an Iran assassination attempt. Like, no, you guys are currently working with the contacts in Iran to try and kill Trump, but you want to be under the basis of, oh, we're trying to protect Trump. So I think there's 2 plays that the Democrats have left between now and the inauguration day. I'm gonna call it out now. They're either gonna work with Iran to assassinate Trump, so the warmongers, the establishment neocons can still get their war. The Uniparty can get their war in Iran that they want. By killing Trump, and then they radicalize a lot of the MAGA base, I'm not saying all, into, hey, Iran killed your president, let's go get them. So that'd be on the extreme side. The other side, which I talked about, and then of course within days you got this Biden, this Harris aide putting out these seeds on CNN. This is from USA Today, and then here we go from Politico. And then there was also an article from The Guardian where they kind of put out a seed of just this opinion, like of Joe Biden should resign. So what I think was going to happen next few weeks, you're going to see the slow pressure campaign. Biden should resign. Biden resign. And I don't think Joe's going to go for it. I think he's happy that Kamala lost. And I think they're going to have to take forcible action, and potentially they may take him out. And I don't wish any harm on our current president. As much as I despise Joe Biden, I am a Christian. I don't wish harm or ill will on anybody. but we are dealing with these Democrats that will lie, cheat, steal, kill to get to maintain power. So we're seeing this from the Guardian, now USA Today, and now Biden, that they're already willing to put this stuff out. As far as like they had no trouble for years calling Trump a fascist, Trump's Hitler. We got to get rid of him. And now there's no coincidence. Now they're starting to put out these seeds of Biden should step down. And to me, they're ringing the dinner bell and saying, hey, Biden, step down or else you might have a nasty slip and fall. You might end up in the hospital. You might have to do a surgery and things go wrong. Or you might end up eating something and, you know, you might get a heart attack. So I think we are seeing these two scenarios, whether they still try and take out Trump and blame Iran, or the Dems who have no trouble trying to coup and eat their own. They're going to do something to Biden. And I'm actually worried about Biden for the first time maybe ever. I don't want this guy to croak. We don't need Kamala hopping in the chair. So I just want to kind of throw this out there, and Conspiracy Brother, Pastor Green, whoever wanted to comment on this, because this is very possible. So what do you guys think?
I want to say this. I think Biden is perfectly safe. Nobody wants to see Kamala in the White House, but
even the Dems,
even the Dems. That's after this debacle of her campaign, no one wants to see that. But I do want to address what you said about Donald Trump, because I do think they are trying to create a cover story with this Iran assassination attempt. And this goes back to when John F. Kennedy was president. Because you remember when they knew Kennedy was not going to go into Vietnam and give them their war, what happened? All these stories about Castro wanting to kill Kennedy, or the mafia wanting to kill Kennedy, when it was Kennedy's own government that assassinated him. The military industrial complex. They had to get Kennedy out the way in order for the Vietnam War to become a reality. And it was President Lyndon Baines Johnson who escalated that war upon the death of John F. Kennedy. But the American government covered themselves with all this conspiracy, saying it was Castro. It was the mafia. You know, so we're hearing this scenario again. Now, all of a sudden, the Iranians are supposed to kill Trump. And you know how ridiculous that is. One man was assigned to kill Trump, and he was going to be successful. Think about that. So, you know, we see how the military industrial complex is raising its head again. They know when Trump gets in office, these wars are going to stop. And what else is going to stop? Their money, their power, their influence. So we as Americans, we have to be aware, and we have to stand behind our president, even cover our president. We should let them know we are watching them. Them being who? The deep state, the World Economic Forum. Trump has so many enemies in high places that are against him. And as Americans, we have to cover our president. And I yield.
Amen, Pastor. All right, Conspiracy Brother, anything you wanted to add to any potential, any last minute shenanigans Dems can try and pull off between now and Inauguration Day? Tinfoil hat on.
Well, like I showed you on that. like I showed you from that clip from Gerald Ford from like 40 years ago, when he was saying, the first female president will probably be elected because she'll be vice president and some shenanigans are going to happen. I have to believe that after the fact, I got to agree with Pastor Green. It seems less likely that it will happen now because she is such an unpopular figure that it really wouldn't be. It would almost just do worse than not having her because she's so unpopular. What would you get accomplished? Whereas if she were popular enough to win on her own, you might be able to at least have people say, well, yeah, it's not like with the whole primary situation where nobody voted for her, but she still, nobody ever complained. Well, yeah, she didn't get elected, but they were so behind her that nobody said anything about it because they were just happy she was there. I don't think you'd be able to get away with that now because she's so unpopular and because she won the election. She lost the election in such a historic fashion, right? Because I noticed, and I said this, but it was a video I was watching. I believe it was Chapo Trap House, and they were talking about how she's the first Democrat to lose the popular vote. They say in 20 years. They're saying since Bush in 2004. But the thing they said, and I said this, I think, on our live watch show, is in 2004, Bush actually lost Ohio, but Kerry conceded while they were still counting votes. And him and Kerry, John Kerry and George Bush, were in the same fraternity, the Skull and Bones at Yale. And so they believe that was why, Kerry conceded when Ohio was technically still up for grabs. If Kerry would have won Ohio, if I'm not mistaken, if Kerry would have won Ohio, he would have won the election, but he conceded before the votes finished counting. And if you guys remember that guy, remember at the University of Florida when John Kerry went to speak, and the guy said, "Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me, bro." So the guy asking the question he was asking John Kerry was, "Isn't it true, Senator, that you and George Bush are in the same fraternity, the Skull and Bones?" Or he said, "Isn't it true that you won Ohio?" or something. It was like one of those two questions. And John Kerry was letting him speak. And as he was asking that question, Dave Chappelle has a joke about it. He tugged his ears. It's a joke Dave Chappelle said. But while he was asking the question, then he was getting tased by the campus police. So,
oh my God.
If we say that John Kerry actually won Ohio in 2004, this would mean that the last Republican to win the popular vote was Ronald Reagan. So that would mean that a Republican hasn't won the popular vote in 40 years. Okay. So, that kind of contextualizes this. You can't just replace her with Joe Biden, I feel like, at this point. I thought maybe they would do it as the race came along, maybe even before the election, to kind of give her a boost and maybe get people comfortable with her being there already. Joe Biden might take an extended absence, maybe a surgery or something, or a sickness. But as the pastor said, given the historic unpopularity that she has enjoyed, and they still made her the vice president, which, Joe Biden said he wanted a black woman. And so, like I said, if she would have just stayed a senator, this would all be a non-issue. But you got a woman who essentially managed to, and I'm not saying this personally, but I'm just saying this given the circumstances, given how she looked and what she was willing to do, move up completely unopposed throughout her career, whether it's her relationship with Willie Brown and giving 2 appointments to jobs that made her approximately $500,000 a year each, like coming straight out of law school, which she was by that time unqualified for. And, district attorney, attorney general, which were like, in my opinion, diversity hire roles, I guess before they had that term. And then same for the vice president. If Joe Biden says I want a black woman, that means you're not taking the most qualified person. And that doesn't mean that you can't find a black woman. Right. That doesn't mean you can't find a black woman who is more than enough qualified to be vice president. But when you say you're looking for a black woman to be vice president, that means you're looking for a person who is black and a female more than you are looking for a person who's most qualified.
And that's so crazy how the Dems come out, and I hate to interject, but the Dems come out and just say that out loud. Even Gavin Newsom, who I think appointed, who was that lady he had appointed a year and a half ago, who used to be on
Senator
the board.
LaFonza Butler.
Yeah, to replace, Barbara.
Feinstein.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about, to replace Dianne Feinstein. And then, of course, there were a lot of ramblings about Barbara Lee. As much as I don't agree with her, and she was kind of Democrat establishment, old guard, she did vote against the Iraq war. I give her flowers there. She's a lot more pro-war nowadays, doesn't really speak up on that. But she, if anything, is qualified. And he skipped right over her and was like, I'm going to pick a black woman. I'm going to pick this Planned Parenthood chick who's just starting out a career, who's going to fall in line with what I say. So, yeah, I mean.
Well, you know why he picked her, right?
Why?
So, the reason he picked her, she was a lobbyist. She worked for Emily's List, which I believe they are a
pro-abortion.
They're pro-abortion, but there's something like that. I'm not totally sure, but something with abortion or women's rights or something. So she was a lobbyist for Emily's List, and so the reason she didn't put he was supposed to pick a black woman because he got a Hispanic senator to replace Kamala Harris. He gave a Hispanic male Kamala Harris's seat. And so a lot of black women in California complained that, that Kamala Harris being vice president took away a black woman's seat. So he said he would replace her seat. He would replace Dianne Feinstein with a black woman. Well, Nancy Pelosi wanted Adam Schiff. He won that election this past Tuesday. Adam Schiff, former member of the House from California, who was on the Trump impeachment board, she wanted him to have that seat. So and she understood that if Barbara Lee was given that seat, it would essentially be a guarantee that she would keep it. She's a current member of government from California. She's a black woman, and she has no intention of resigning or stepping down. So, that'd be her seat. So Gavin Newsom put this woman, LaFonza Butler, who's a lesbian, has a wife, in this position. So I say that because, get 2 brownie points. She's black. She's a lesbian, right? You put her there. She takes the position. Then she says, hey, I don't want to run for re-election. So you get a black woman, you give her that seat. The black woman you appoint doesn't want to run for re-election. And so then you have a primary. And then Barbara Lee doesn't even run. I don't think she even ran during the primary. But Adam Schiff ran. A whole bunch of people ran. Adam Schiff ended up winning. He made it out. Now he's a senator. So it was a lot of backdoor kind of fugazi, whatever. But that's how it works out. So they're all full of it. Even when they try to pretend like, we care about black people. We care about it's all political theater. And we need to be a lot more politically mature and look at what's in our best interest as black people, as voters, because it's not the Democratic Party. It's not this. It's not their policies. It's none of this.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. Ooh. A little troll in the chat. All right, in this chat. But great commentary, conspiracy brother. I think that was a nice way to kind of wrap up just the deep-seated corruption and even the backdoor politics to picking these DEI hires, Kamala included, how they stepped over Barbara Lee and they put in this plant, that Gavin put in. So I think that just, I think he had a good way of kind of circling that back. So next topic, guys, is I wanted to cover a little bit about the Michigan and Detroit election corruption. I think obviously in most of these Democrat-ran cities, I'm sure Pastor Green, you can attest to out there in New York City as well. There's still some level of cheating, of corruption, shenanigans going on. 2020 obviously was a big sign of that. Even this past election, this is a recent uh, broadcast of Souls to the Polls. This is 180 Church in Detroit, Michigan, West Side, with Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. So basically, here on the left is Ramon Jackson. In the middle is Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who had Trump come speak in June. And then on the right here is a gentleman, Stephen Malik Shelton, who's an investigative journalist in Detroit. So, I even had a chance to attend, and basically what I've gathered is there were a lot when they opened up the Q&A. There were residents who ran grassroots, who got tried to do write-in, and they kind of countered a lot of the same shenanigans from 2020. A lot of people didn't know. I think current Michigan Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, he ran for some position. I'm not sure, conspiracy brother, if you had caught that or saw him on your ballot. But basically, I forgot he was running for maybe a Detroit sheriff or Wayne County sheriff, but he got cheated the same way they cheated the Republicans in 2020, but he can't speak up because he's still part of Whitmer's camp. So there's just a lot of examples, especially with a lady who was trying to run against Janice Jeffrey or Janice Winfrey, current Detroit city clerk. So once again, I'm not as well versed in the happenings of what's going on, but I want to at least play. I want to, if conspiracy brother, you had any thoughts? I want to at least play the first 5-10 minutes of this. I think Pastor Green, Pastor Sewell, if you already have it connected with him, he'd be a great resource to reach out to. Continue building that coalition. But conspiracy brother, did you want to comment on any of that? Any Detroit election shenanigans you've heard of before I play?
I hadn't. I'm sure there are some. I won't even try to pretend that there are none. But I wasn't aware of Garland Gilchrist running for anything. So
yeah,
but I know Janice Winfrey. I know she's got some funny business all the time with that clerk position. So I'm not at all surprised with that. She's got some funny business.
Yeah, and that kind of triggered my memory because what they were talking about is how they have this sort of stonewall way of whoever the city clerk position is one of the most stonewalled positions. As far as you always notice, it's the city clerk that has the position for 5 to 10 years, and then they groom and they basically install the deputy city clerk, who ends up just sort of taking their place. And it has a very sort of way they do it to kind of shut out any outsiders. So Janice Winfrey was actually, I think, the deputy city clerk, if I'm not mistaken, before she took the city clerk mantle. So what I want to do, this live stream, they started the live stream after it already started. So they go into a lot of receipts. So I want to play maybe 5-10 minutes, not too long. And then I want to get, conspiracy brother, then Pastor Green, your commentary. Let us know, if this maybe reminds you of things you may have seen in New York going on with your local elections, but it runs deep. So I'm going to play maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, and then maybe pause it at 5. So let me know if you guys can't hear the audio.
81,000 straight Democrats. tickets to the Democrat Party. So everybody who ran on the Democrat boards, from the Illiges to all of them, was able to be put ahead of their candidate in the largest city. Understand this, blacks not the largest population in the state, but this is the largest voting block in the state in Detroit, larger than the largest city, which is the second largest city, which is Grand Rapids, Michigan, 200,000 people. See that? That's what they got total in Grand Rapids. Detroit alone gave Slockins 200,000 votes. And guess what? She didn't even do a round table here. Brother Rogers was here doing a round table. He was in Pontiac doing it. She didn't even have to come and do a round table with the residents in Detroit. She didn't even have to come here. It was automatically secured that she would get them votes, and she was able to focus on the major voting block, which is the white vote, and that's what possibly pushed her. Before I go, we obtained the list, so we waiting on that list from our city clerk. Just want to tell y'all that we went down there, paid for the list, thanks to Pastor Zoe and the 180 Church. We went paid for that list. The list coming through, so we're gonna be waiting on the list, and we're gonna be able to comb the list. I encourage people in all the cities, we need to get those lists, because I don't feel like 200,000 people voted in Detroit, nor do I feel like 220,000 people voted for Trump. But I would not make a determined statement without having the facts. So that's why we need to pull that list. We need to comb that list. Even though Trump won, we still cannot let them cheat. We gotta break the cycle, because they might have gave us Trump because they knew we was gonna go crazy if Trump wouldn't have won, and then cheated Rogers, cheated all our other people, even though it was the wins across the board. So I just wanted to say that.
In terms of cheating, I want you all to understand something. If we're in a fight.
Oh, I apologize. Can you guys hear that? I know it's coming in soft.
Yeah, I can hear it.
You guys
I can hear it. Yes.
You guys hear it now?
Not now.
Not right now.
Oh,
Not
my
now.
bad.
I'm not training. I'm not running. We get in the ring together. I mean, you can see you're muscular. I mean, you're ready to fight.
Is that better? Can you hear it?
But you didn't know before we got in the ring.
Yep.
I put bricks in my gloves.
Okay.
So as soon as we get to fighting, I just tap you, and you get knocked out, right? What the Democrats are doing in cities like Detroit and other urban areas is, what they're doing is they're taking people who left this city. They're attaching their names to dilapidated homes. They're attaching their names to homes that nobody even lives there. And we have proof of it. And we had people from this church, Pam was one of them. We had people from this church down at the election. How is it that this man drives a truck to pick up ballots one time, two times, and then the third time he hits a poll? Now explain that to me. Explain that when the last 4,000 ballots come in, he all of a sudden hits a poll. Mike Rogers was beating Alyssa Slockin. We all went to sleep. Mike won. We wake up the next morning, and isn't that interesting? Mike lost. So what did we do as community advocates, as a pastoral leader, and as political leaders? We went to go and get the list, because you cannot tell me 200,000 people voted, and then I can't see the list of those 200,000 people. So now we're looking at the list of the 200,000 people, and guess what we're doing? We're cross-referencing the list. Not only are we doing that, we will be in Washington in couple weeks, and we're going to sit in front of Jim Jordan's office. He came to this church. He stood at this altar. I lay hands on Jim Jordan, who is the head of the Judiciary Committee. And we're going to ask him to have a hearing, because as long as they can cheat us, they'll continue to misuse us. But how many would say enough is enough? You will not continue to cheat us. At least allow it to be fair. Let it be a fair fight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's not my fault you ain't work out. It ain't my fault. I was running and working out, and I was ready to fight. And then we get in the ring, and you put bricks in your gloves. and you cheat me. The devil is a liar, amen? We're going to make the crooked way straight and the rough way smooth. And we're going to make sure that when we have election in this city, it will be fair elections. Amen? Amen.
And I think
Going into the we about to break
okay.
the city government.
Oh yeah,
I wanna
yeah. Go
pause
right
right
ahead.
here right
Give your
quick.
thoughts. We'll watch another 5 minutes, but yeah, conspiracy brother,
Yeah.
and then Pastor Green.
But when we watched the election live, I mean, we saw Mike Rogers was winning.
Yeah, he
and I thought it was
tuned in.
peculiar.
Yeah,
He was winning by quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I thought it was peculiar that Mike Rogers would lose as the votes trickled in because she's winning by a couple percentage. I can check, but it's not. But last it was like 1% or something. She won by it was like at one point it was like 0.3% or something. But anyway, I thought it was strange that she would win and Trump would win Michigan at the same time, because I couldn't see people saying, I want Trump to win, but I want a Democrat senator.
right.
You know what I'm saying? I couldn't
they
see
took
that.
that from Mike. They took that from Mike Rogers.
I couldn't.
Right
That didn't make sense to me because Michigan ain't that kind of state. We are the kind of state where you could have one Democrat senator and one Republican senator, but we're not the kind of state where you would have or even a Democrat governor and vote Republican or vice versa. But we're not the kind of state where you would say on the same ballot, I'm voting for the Democrat for senator, but I'm voting for the Republican for president. That don't make sense.
It don't.
And it didn't make sense at the time. But at the time when we did our show, Mike Rogers had about a 4% lead on Alyssa Slotkin. And see, this is the thing we got to remember about Alyssa Slotkin. She worked for the CIA.
Right.
So it's very possible that she's clued in, clicked in, and that the CIA is backing her and making sure that she is elected to the Senate. And like Brother Ramon was saying, because I actually worked with him a little bit. We did some work together with another group I'm in. The important thing to understand is that you got to have it be right. It's got to be right. You see what I'm saying? It has to be correct. And so if they think, well, we'll let Trump win Detroit, but we're still going to let a Slotkin win, and that way that can't be accurate. You see what I'm saying? That can't be. If that's not true, it can't be true just so it can make you feel better. The truth has to be the truth. And so if Trump won Detroit, Trump would have won. Mike Rogers would have won Detroit too. You see what I'm saying? They're not going to have a situation because Detroit voters are so disengaged. I want to say because we did it on another show. I want to say the last city election for mayor on, and I feel like voter turnout. So registered voters. Only about 11 or 12% of registered voters actually participated in the election. There are about 600,000 people in the city of Detroit. Let's just say half of them are adults, so voting age adults. So let's just say, the majority, let's say 2/3 are registered to vote, so 200,000. 20,000 people voted. 20,000 or so, I'll say 25,000 on the high end, voted in the election that year for mayor. In the city of 600,000 people. And you expect me to believe 200,000 voted for president, a Republican president, were so engaged to vote for president, voted for a Republican president, and then said, but I'm going to vote for a Democrat for senator. Does that make sense?
I think they need to hit up, I think Mike Rogers need to call Kerry Lake, because we're seeing the same thing right now, because they called Arizona for Trump earlier today, but somehow the communist Democrat Ruben Galago took Arizona from Kerry Lake. So who knows what foolery is going on? Like with Arizona, why are you voting for a Republican president, but then you're gonna pick a Democrat senator? That makes no sense. But Pastor Green, any your thoughts? What's going
Yeah,
on
see,
in
this
New York?
this
Yeah. Mhm.
well, the thing now, I'm residing in Pennsylvania, but I'm often in New York. But the same thing keeps happening. Okay, for example, in New York, I believe they vote honestly. It's just that they vote foolishly. That's the situation in New York. But here in Pennsylvania, where I'm residing, one of the things that I discovered again with the previous election, I had a woman, I had two members of my church, and one of them passed away. She was the mother of a daughter. Her daughter was in my church. Now, the mother who passed away, they sent 3 mail-in ballots to her home. Listen to what I'm telling you. And I made a video about this. I still have those ballots today because the daughter gave me the mother's mail-in ballots, and the woman had passed away, and yet they sent three mail-in ballots to her house.
Man.
Now that's just one person. Imagine how many people they did it the same thing to. See, when these mail-in ballots go out, they go out in either duplicate or triplicate. So the bottom line is there has to be, whether it comes from the courts or is voted on in the Congress or the Senate, these mail-in ballots have to be eliminated. We will never have fair elections as long as these mail-in ballots exist. No one should be able to vote with a mail-in ballot unless you have some type of physical impairment where you just can't get to the polls. If you're an able-bodied person, then you need to go and vote in person. And another thing that needs to stop, because it happens in all these Democratic controlled states, where you have a Democratic governor, you don't have to show no ID to vote.
Yeah.
Think about that. This is how the Democrats cheat. You couldn't even get in Kamala Harris one of her rallies unless you showed ID to get in there. But yet you don't have to go show an ID to vote. I mean,
Same
think
with the
about it.
DNC. The DNC did that, and California just banned voter ID at elections. So you can't even if you go up and show your voter ID, you can't even show it to the staff. They can't even look at it.
No, and you know what? Every year I make sure I take out my driver's license, offer to give it to them, and I get the same response every time. Oh, that's not needed. What's your name? What's your address? And that's the extent of it. So we need a referendum against these ballots, and we need to demand that you have an ID in order to vote. Think about this. Where can you go and conduct legitimate business without some type of form of ID? You can't do business in the bank or nowhere else if you don't show some form of identification. And again, I remember, what was Kamala Harris? What was her conclusion on this? Well, you don't have enough Kinkos in black neighborhoods. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
You said
man.
that? Would you say
She
that?
said that.
Oh my
She
God.
said that. She said that prior to running for office. But see, this is the mentality that's out there.
And you know what? And you know what, too? I think, and once again, I'm gonna just put it out there. I'm guilty. I think the last couple of elections, I'm gonna just say I have voted absentee ballot. I'm like, I don't want to wait in those lines. Send it to my house. I'll make up something, So I think really after 2020 woke me up, and then even this election, I voted absentee. I did do the mail-in ballot, boy, but I think what you said was really powerful. Like, I'm committed. Like, I might do early voting. I don't know if I'm gonna show up election day, but I might go a few days early and be like, you know what, this is important. And if enough people push back, if they show up with their ID, that's gonna send a message. Like, no, we want this voter ID. We're going to show up. We're gonna fill it out on paper. Even if we vote a few days early. And I think getting people back in that habit instead of falling into this lethargic COVID era with these mail-ins. I mean, even for me, I think that's a good wake-up call where I need, like, moving forward, I'm making the commitment. Like, I'm voting in person. May not be the day of, but I will be voting in person with my voter ID. And if we don't start taking that stand and making it and making a standard out of it, they're just going to continue to keep pushing the mail-in ballots, At least me personally. Conspiracy, brother?
Well, so it's a couple points. I was thinking this as the event went on. What California, I think what they're trying to do, because you remember a lot of states were pushing back when Trump was trying to have a citizenship question added to the census, right? A lot of states are trying to push back saying you shouldn't do that or whatever. It could make people not fill out the paperwork. So what I think California is trying to do is to make its population so large that it can swing an election by itself. So the sheer fact that it is a blue state will guarantee a Democratic win based on its size. For example, you look at Kamala Harris' numbers, 229. 54 of those votes was just California. So if you take that away, you really only had 175 votes, right? Now you can say, well, if you take any of the numbers away, then whatever. My point is, there's no other state that is a coast. Now, Texas is large; it covers a large land area, but I believe the population is still only 33 people. California covers a large area of coastal land. A lot of the population of this country still lives on coastal land. So you made a state of essentially coastal land. A lot of people still don't live inland in California. You go east in California, there's not a lot of people there. There's still a lot of desert and stuff, right? There are some people there, but most of the people live on the coast. And so if that were 3 or 4 states, it would be, like Arizona or like New Mexico. It would be 4. I mean, it'd be 10 to 12, maybe 20, depending on how you set it up, states. But it's 50. It's 50 points. And so that's my first thought is what California is doing with the voter ID law, with the lax immigration law, with the intention on trying to have the no questioning of citizenship. They're trying to make it so that, let's say California was worth 100 points. It would change the amount of total votes you needed in order to win the election. But if you got 100 points for just one state, that's going to give you a significant lead. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's the same thing in New York, because they're doing that in New York. They're trying to fill the census with these illegals, because you remember New York counts for 28 points. You see?
Yeah.
So California, New York, that's what they're doing. They're trying to change the census with these illegals so that they get more seats.
Yep. Import that border base. Yep.
Right. And so, I think that's one of the issues that we have with that aspect of, the voting situation. And then, like you guys are talking about, and I was talking to some coworkers about it, it should be mandatory. In a lot of countries, it is. It should be mandatory that you have an ID to vote. And this idea that, black people can't get a hold of IDs or access to IDs or whatever is complete BS, because we need them to drive, especially in Michigan, where you don't really have adequate public transportation anywhere. You need it to drive, you need it to work. As you guys have said, we needed to get into certain buildings, certain concerts and things like that, or certain events. And the big thing is, they're trying to switch to this real ID in May of 2025. And so in this case, you won't even be able to get on airplanes without a specific type of ID that has, my guess is, it must have some type of very in-depth personal information on the lines of like what you call it, an enhanced driver's license or something, because they won't even allow you to travel domestically without one, but they still want to allow you to vote with no ID at all. It doesn't make sense. I won't be able to travel within the country that I pay taxes to, that I live in, that I am, but without a specific type of identification. But you still expect me to be able to vote, which is supposed to be, one of the most important actions a citizen can take, with nothing at all.
Yeah, this whole enhanced ID and all this stuff, Pat, babe, don't need it for the polls. We use it everywhere else.
I mean, a minor can't even buy cigarettes legally unless showing some ID and proof of age.
There's a whole list.
The greatest privilege we have, you don't have to show ID for, which is voting.
Yeah, off.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let's watch the last. Well, not the last, but let's watch maybe like another 5 minutes of this. I highly recommend you guys. I could send you this link. Really good information. And they kind of dig into what went on recently, obviously with this Michigan election. But I can just tell there's a lot of black churches like this all over the country, and this is going on. This election on the local level, which is really important, more so than who the president is, because the president controls the federal. The president doesn't control what the governor does. The county executive, it doesn't have to answer to the governor. The mayor doesn't have to answer to what maybe the county executive decides. So they're like their own presidents of their own sectors. So I think they do a good job of explaining that. But then let's just watch another 5 minutes. We can move on to the final topic. So here we go.
This enough. If our city is not together, we cannot be properly represented. It's a science to voting. It's a science to voting. It's a science to being represented. If you don't know the science, you cannot be properly represented. So this is why we're going to the city government, and we're going to break down the mayor, the council, and the department. 1 year from today, the city, 1 year from right now, we should have been elected a mayor in Detroit and the city council. Right now, we are at a crossroad on who going to be our CEO. That's a CEO position. Who going to be our executive? Who going to be our city president? Who going to be the king? Who we going to anoint as the king? Because that's what that position is. It's a power of a king. So we at a crossroad on who we going to elect. Let me say this before we go on to this. Whoever comes and say they want to run, because they about to come out the woodwork. They about to come from everywhere, jumping out there. And they're going to feel like they can avoid having real conversations with the people about fiscal matters. If they do not know the fiscal matters of our city, they are not worthy to be put in that place. Despite what you like about them, how popular they is, they have to know the fiscal matter. They have to know the budget. They have to know the breakdown of bonds. They have to know what debt the city has. They have to know what's the revenue streams, because if not, it's going to fall over. Right now, we are hanging on a string. Right now, we hanging on the string is Detroit. Everybody's saying they balance the budget. They're not balancing the budget. They kicking the debt down the road, issuing municipal bonds every year, balancing budget with bonds, moving this over here, taking federal funds that be supposed to go to help the homeless, using them to pay people to work in positions that are already supposed to be in the government. This is what they're doing in order to balance the budget. So we're not in a fiscal good place in Detroit. We got 5 times over the debt limit, the constitutional debt limit. We 5
Oh,
times.
if somebody can
Michigan got
mute,
a debt
hear some
limit that
background noise.
prohibits any municipality borrowing. And we'll get into that when we get into the Home Rule City Act and get into more local laws. But Michigan got a 10% debt limit that prohibits cities from borrowing over their real and personal property. Why do they have those debt limits? They have those debt limits established so that the residents do not be burdened. That's why they established debt limits. They say, listen, the residents might not peak that. The city elected officials is running game on them. So what we're going to do is set up a safeguard for them. We're going to put a debt limit on it and say, despite whatever they say, whatever they vote on, whatever it is, you can't borrow past this limit. We 5 times past the limit in Detroit. And we can prove it. Me and this brother right here, we went to court. We took them to court in Ingham County, and we proved that not only was they over the debt limit, we proved that they artificially inflated the debt limit in order to borrow more money on the residents in Detroit. We proved that by moving the decimal. You know, I'm going to say this, and I know Brother Malik probably. They say math is life. I always heard that everything is math. And when you look at it, miles, when you go on gas, all dealing with math. We was in court about a decimal. I'm not making this up. Our whole case was based on moving a decimal and then taking the decimal, moving the decimal, and doing a division problem. By moving the decimal, the city was able to do the division problem, the multiplication problem, and turn 10 million into 10 billion. So see, 10 million only would have gave you 1 million in borrowing limit. That's 10% of 10 million is 1 million. 10 billion give you 1 billion. That's a whole lot of money, whole lot of more money.
And the Housing and Revitalization Department, they call it HRD. And you should all familiarize yourself, those that live in or near Detroit, with the different acronyms that they use, because they use them almost like a code. So there's a lot of different city departments that they're not going to say the entire word, like Housing and Revitalization Department. They're going to say HRD. Or for the Building and Safety and Engineering Environmental Department, they won't say that. They'll say BSEED. Or for the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, they'll say OCFO. Right? And I think they do that intentionally to kind of have like a code. If they figure that a lot of people are not familiar with those acronyms. But it's very important. We actually had a session before council, and they brought in a bunch of people, lawyers, financial experts, the head of HRD, Housing and Revitalization Department, her aide, they came in, and I had a report from the Inspector General, the Federal Inspector General. They had done a little audit on HRD, and I don't think they knew that I had that report. I pulled it out, and it was a scathing report. There was all kinds of malfeasance, money coming up missing, money not accounted for, money going all over the place, theft, and the potential for theft, either actual theft, money coming up missing, or the potential for theft, no oversight, money's going from bank to bank and no one knowing why it's going there. Then there's entries in the financial reports for tens of millions of dollars right here in the city of Detroit that say miscellaneous. Just not telling you what these tens of millions are. Here you go, $68 million, and then it's under miscellaneous, or it's under quote other, unquote. And you can't get any answers from that. They don't even honor what they call Freedom of Information reports. The Office of the Chief Financial Officer, they have 400 employees that work there. And you can't find out. I said, who are they? What are their job descriptions? What are their titles? Where do they live? Nothing. I don't say anything. And you've heard of the F-bomb, right? Well, let me tell you what the real F-bomb is downtown when you go before council or the city administration. Forensic audit. They hate to hear that. They'd rather you cuss them out than to mention forensic audit. The city needs a forensic audit. I heard somebody say, City of Detroit, well, you know, Malik, to do a forensic audit, do you know how expensive that is? It's too expensive. I said, I beg to differ. It's too expensive not to have it because they're robbing us big time. And a forensic audit is different from a regular audit. And because a forensic auditors go in looking for theft. They assume that it's going on. They're going in and they know all the little tricks to try to hide money or juggle money around, and they're looking for it. That's how they came across and then eventually indicted and charged the man that was over the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. They had an outside forensic auditor come in, and they found all kinds of malfeasance and skeletons everywhere. And so we need one here, starting with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, then Housing and Revitalization Department, the Mayor's Office, and then this doggone so-called Construction and Demolition Department. It's been just dripping with corruption ever since Duggan has been in office. And so this is what we need. Now we have a shot at it. Because what? Trump is in office. We have a Republican administration, and they can send the oversight agencies down here and the auditors. They can send the federal inspector generals and attorney generals down here because, you know, Trump is not friendly with Duggan, and he's not friendly with Governor Whitmer. And he knows what's going on down here in Detroit. He's no fool. You know they're stealing us blind. So we do have a more of a shot or a chance, a very good chance, much better. We had no chance under Biden of anybody coming down here because Duggan and Biden, they were in bed together. But now we have a much better, and that's what's worrying them. That's why they had that meeting that Brother Ramon was talking about in Pastor Sewell about the ARPA funds. All of a sudden, they're sitting there sweating bullets. What can we do? What we're gonna do about this ARPA money? And so, and I called in. You know what I told him? I dropped the F-bomb on him. I said, what about a forensic audit? They didn't say anything, of course. Try it. Drop the F-bomb on them, forensic audit, and see how they act.
You know, it's
All right, so I just want to kind of leave it there. Once again, that was Stephen Malik Shelton. He's an investigative journalist out of Detroit who's been working with Ramon Jackson, who's preparing to run for city council next year, sitting there with Pastor Lorenzo Sewell in the middle. But yeah, I've been learning a lot, watching and attending those sessions. Definitely a lot of underbelly shenanigans going on, but just think about it. If it's happening in Detroit, how many other cities, you know, Pennsylvania, New York, that this is happening to? So any other final thoughts before we go to our last topic? Corruption runs deep, you know?
Yeah, so
Well, I believe,
one of the things, oh, you can go ahead, Pastor Green.
I'm sorry. Well, I just believe Trump is going to expose all the corruption in city and state governments, and not only in state governments, but there's another corruption that's going to blow the lid of what goes on around in this country, and it's going to be worldwide effect. Is Trump promised to open up the Epstein files?
Yes.
So you combine that with the Diddy files, and boy, it is going to
JFK. You might do the JFK.
Yeah. So this is why they're scared, and they're terrified that Trump is back in office.
Yeah. And even what they mentioned about They had a Mayor Mike Dugan of Detroit. They had like an emergency meeting, like the night they called it for Trump. I think emergency meeting with the all black city council. You know, I'm sure Whitmer had an emergency meeting somewhere as well. But yeah, they're scared because I think Trump, like Mr. Shelton was mentioning, he can drop the hammer. He can come down and send Jim Jordan the House committee to investigate what's been going on in Detroit and a lot of these other Democrat-run cities. So it's blood in the water, and yeah, conspiracy brother. Anything else you wanted to add before we get over to our last topic?
Yeah. So I was gonna say, I think, for Trump, if we can want anything from his time in office as far as to consider it a success, I think him doing something about corruption would definitely bring that. I'd like him to hit some corruption when you look at the district attorneys who have, used lawfare against him, the attorneys general who have done it, and in the various states. You're looking at Letitia James of New York, the attorney general of California. I forget who he is, but he was saying something about fighting the Trump administration. Here, Dana Nessel. So I think if we could get him to really fight against corruption in the legal system in this country, along with the things that RFK Jr. has talked about doing, has been, so far talked about being tasked with, and a few other things, I think his political career his second term can be considered a complete success. But he needs to hit the ground, running. He needs to be January 21st or January 20th after inauguration. Because, he needs to put that first 100 days to the test. If that means he'll have the Senate, if that means making every appointment just an acting appointment so that he can bypass Senate confirmation and have them get right to work, do that. You know what I'm saying? But corruption, I think, is an issue that he needs to hit immediately. All of them are corrupt. All of them are doing dirty things. He needs to, I think forensic audits are necessary for a lot of these major cities, especially a lot of these Democrat-controlled cities. But I mean, you can look at a lot of these places and a lot of these companies and a lot of these politicians, because they're all Nancy Pelosi. She's getting some kind of corrupt kickbacks. So investigate all of them. That would really be a success in my eyes.
Well, most definitely. And also to give Trump some credit, I know I kind of gave him a little flack this week on him hiring Susan Wiles, who once again they're kind of touting it. The left, of course, is ignoring it. How it's the first woman to hold chief of staff position, but she does have some big pharma ties that our friend of the show, Mike Adams, over at Natural News Health Ranger Report, he kind of pointed out some big pharma ties she does have. It's a little troubling, but he did announce that Mike Pompeo and warmonger Nick Haley will not be in his administration. So I think that's at least a win among itself that those two rhinos won't be getting their tentacles back around Trump. So we can at least take those wins. But yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to our final topic. Once again, you guys are listening to Uncomfy Truths. We're nearing our third hour, so we're going to be going pretty much winding down, if you will. So feel free to give us a like, follow on Rumble, Odyssey, or Rumble, Odyssey, and YouTube. So here we go. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Yeah, so basically, Jeff Bezos sent out an open letter, and of course they're simping to Trump now. But there was a article where he did an open letter to the Washington Post. Yeah, here it is. Basically saying like, hey, they don't trust the news anymore. I'm not sure if he mentions in his article, like he basically told his staff, like, we're not endorsing presidential candidates. So there's something very strategic about this. Like him having his open letter so close to the election, he came out and told his staff, hey, you know, uh, the American people aren't going to all of a sudden see this news institution endorsing this candidate and go, oh, wow, I think I'm going to vote for that candidate now. You know, they've been losing trust with trust with the public for years now, especially with COVID. And I kind of give Jeff some credit. I don't know I think likely he's kind of starting to pander and see where the wind is blowing, you know, in case of a Trump presidency, which he was right. And, you know, he's kind of trying to get on the Republicans' good side. I still think, you know, Jeff he's up there with Mark Zuckerberg as far as not like super crazy capitalist, but at the same time, like this big tech oligarch who was on the left side for so long. But I think it's more pandering to the new administration. And there were about 2 or 3 people from the Washington Post that quit. They were like, how dare you? How come, like, you know, these are just such normies that are such political activists masquerading as journalists, like you posting on your own personal account that, yeah, you endorse Kamala Harris. That's not enough. Like your job, like you have to demand your job, endorse the candidate you want, and have the audacity to try and like protest to your boss because, you know, he's no longer allowing presidential endorsements. And basically, he said the Washington Post isn't going to endorse any candidate, which I kind of respect. But I think once again, he's still pandering on the eve of a Trump win. So I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. Once again, even if you haven't read the open letter, basically he's calling out what we've been saying about the media, why nobody trusts you. And then, of course, a week before Election Day, he says the Washington Post isn't going to endorse either candidate. So I thought this was very interesting. And is Jeff seeing the light? Is he a good guy now, or is he just trying to, you know, weather the storm because he knew a Trump victory was coming? So whoever wants to give their thoughts.
Would you like to go first, Conspiracy Brother, or you want me to go?
I'll let Gus go first.
Okay. Well, you know, I think this election is a statement that the American people have denounced the mainstream media. I mean, when you think about how the mainstream media has brainwashed a segment of Americans, with, you know, that's why you see these women shaving their heads saying, you know, they're not going to get with men anymore and all this kind of, that's all part of the delusion that the mainstream media has done. But the rest of us who are not brainwashed by the mainstream media, they've been denounced with this election. And Jeff Bezos, who is not a fool. You know, one thing I say about these oligarchs, they're not fools. They're just wicked. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not stupid. You know, even the Democrats themselves, they're not stupid. They're just wicked. I mean, they plan all of this, whether it be, you know, destroying the economy, what have you. But again, when people understand who's behind the mainstream media, we see people like Bill Gates again, as we said earlier in this podcast. And people have said enough is enough. And I really believe that Jeff Bezos, he sees that he has seen the handwriting on the wall. Nobody's going to listen to ABC News. No one's going to listen to the mainstream media. No one's going to listen to CNN no more. CNBC. And even foolishness like The View. These institutions of insanity are about to come to an end. Because again, they just been lying to our face. And the people have spoken. This people have rejected the media. People have rejected the Democratic Party and all their affiliates, and they're not going to have it no more. So Jeff Bezos is right, but it's not going to save his paper. And I yield.
Amen. It's not going to save his paper, and nor does that paper, like the Washington Post, deserve to be saved, in my opinion. Conspiracy brother.
So I'm gonna put my tinfoil kufi on.
Yeah.
For this, but he works with the CIA too. All those Amazon Echoes and Alexa, they spy on you. They store your conversations. They give that information to law enforcement. They can give it to whoever they want. So it's an invasion of privacy, but you allow that into your home by owning it and whatever. So
and you don't read the 2,000-page terms. Who
right.
does anyway?
So I'm being more on the nefarious side of it all. I bet that he used that information that he gets from those devices to determine whether people were going to be voting one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? He probably could do something to compile that information and then make a determination. But yes, these are, he as I said, he does government contracts. That Amazon Web Services is a cloud service that all types of companies and corporations use, the government uses. He has that Blue Origin, which is like a SpaceX competitor that he's either uses or wants to use to do space flights, as well as refuel the International Space Station. So I think he's trying his best. And I think Hollywood in general, I watch a lot of media concerning Hollywood and like pop culture, Clownfish, Critical Drinker, Chatto, Midnight's Edge, Eric July, a lot of different people who deal with like pop culture and media. And one of the things that happened in Hollywood, kind of some of the ramifications, but you've seen this happening over the last year to 6 months, is a lot of the agendas that Hollywood has been trying to push, and that have been pushed in video game space and music, movies, and other forms of media. They're starting to fall back. So I was watching a video today where they specifically talked about how the time in Marvel movies known as Phase 4, where they kind of made every male character a female now, or they've taken every male character and replaced them with their female counterpart. Kind of happened after Trump's election in 2016, and that has essentially destroyed all these different franchises. You look at Star Wars, where they centered female characters in Star Wars, and that's kind of killed that franchise. And so what they've seen is that they've lost so much money trying to push all these different messages that were not profitable, that Hollywood is backing away. And a lot of studios, one of the questions in one of the videos, they read an article that said the question now is, does Hollywood have the I guess it was something like, do they have the stomach to fight back anymore against Trump or Trumpism or MAGAism or whatever, trying to basically like fascism or something. And I think the consensus from the authors of the article was no. But I think, when you look at the situation with Bezos, who's a guy who wants to make money, as much as he can. He wants to be a trillionaire. This is what he said. He wants to be the first trillionaire. You can't make money if you're selling a news product that caters to one group of people, especially when news should be one of the main consumable items that is basically able to be consumed by everybody pretty uniformly. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to tell a story pretty uniformly and have it be consumed by both sides of the aisle if you're telling the truth. It shouldn't be something that you have to convince or propagandize somebody with. You should just be able to straightly tell a story and give the perspective with no bias. And I think that's, what is more motivating his behavior. He wants to try to maximize profit, and he's realizing that the dwindling readership of the Washington Post, because of years of being a propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, has made it harder and harder for him to for it to be nothing more than essentially a charity to hack writers who couldn't do anything better with their lives. So I don't know if it's going to save the Washington Post. I think for the most part, American people are done with mainstream media because they are just parroting BS. I think Trump's election has shown us pretty unequivocally that, real people on the ground, real, regular, everyday people are not listening to the talking heads or the mainstream mouthpieces, but they live a real life. They have real experiences. They have real decisions they have to make every day, and they do the best they can to make a decision that they think will best help them to make a better decision the next time. And, I don't think the Washington Post figures into that. Their expression is democracy dies in darkness. And I think someone had forgotten to remind them there that, they've been dark, for far too long. So, they've lost that long ago.
They're causing the very democracy to die in the darkness they created.
Right.
Here. Great words. All right, guys, that's our show. I'd just like to kind of give some closing words and we'll give our final thoughts. Thank you, everybody, for episode 34 of Uncomfy Truths, our first post-election show since the historic Trump win. It was definitely a whirlwind, and we've been kind of, me and Conspiracy Brother, we had the, I actually want to give a quick shout out. If Conspiracy Brother, you want to give a little quick plug to the Freedmen Collective Detroit. We were part of the little election night show. Appreciate you guys bringing me on there. But you want to give a quick plug to Freedmen Collective Detroit, and if you want, before we wrap up the show.
Sure. So we did an election show with Freedmen's Collective on YouTube. We have a Rumble and an Odyssey, but that hasn't been updated in a long time. So primarily just on YouTube, but the Rumble and Odyssey are kind of more for backup. So I'm just going to try to see if I can pull up the YouTube. But we primarily focus on politics and news from the perspective of the descendants of freedmen, black people, native black Americans, native to the Americas, or not to the Americas, but to the United States of America. And so here, let me share my screen. I'll show our YouTube. But yes, that is what we primarily focus on. Political advocacy and I
don't know, we can't see the screen. I don't know if you're still trying to share.
Oh yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, and we do shows very sporadically, but they're usually very in depth, dealing with like different topics. But here's this one: how should Black America vote in 2024? We have we primarily do live videos, but here's one: the Ukraine War, the Ukraine Revisited, or Why You Should Care, Part 1. This was a part 1 of a video we did before about Ukraine, and then we did a part 2 on that. Here is a video we had about Barack Obama, Obama, and the Kamala he rode in on.
Great title.
Attack of the K-Hive Bees. So yeah, we try to do quite a bit of information about, like I said, politics, current events, and the news from a perspective of descendants of freedmen. And our election show, as you can see, was almost 7 hours long. But Conservative Brother did join us. The Freedmen Collective is made up of four men. 3 of us. Well, 2 of us are in Michigan. 3 of us are in Michigan, and one is I don't know if he wants us to tell, so I won't say. One of us is not in Michigan, and we meet every so often. It's usually some combination of the 4 of us. It hasn't been the complete 4 of us in a while, but as you can see, the list of shows we've done, we've got quite a catalog. It's about 40 or so videos.
That election night, that took
we
me
attempt
out,
to bring clarity and perspective. Yeah. So we try to bring some clarity and analysis to some of the issues concerning Black America that maybe the news doesn't cover as clearly as necessary. But here is Blackness and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So this is when we talk about a little bit about how this affects the Black community. It's actually a very good episode because I think it illuminates some of the maybe not obvious ways in which the U.S. involvement in this war could have a negative impact on the Black community. For example, you see various cities around the country allowing for foreigners to become police in the United States. Couple that with the influx of migrants coming into the southern border, and that can potentially be a recipe for disaster, especially when you understand that there are a lot of Nazis, neo-Nazis, but I think they're just plain old Nazis because they trace their heritage from, the Nazis from the Holocaust to today. So I consider them just to be regular old Nazis, but those same Nazis, and they come to the U.S. as refugees and they get jobs as police officers in America, and they work and live in Black neighborhoods, and you can see how that can be a problem. So, this is the Freedmen Collective. You can find us on YouTube at the Freedmen Collective. And you can like and share and subscribe if you happen to like the show.
All righty. All right. Thanks, Conspiracy Brother, for the plug. We're all about, highlighting friends of the show and just different ways we can collaborate, even like the recent Black Women and Black Men Not for Kamala Harris coalition, that we helped put together. So Pastor Green, once again, thank you for coming back by. You were an amazing resource for us as far as like our Kamala town hall panels, bringing that perspective,
Yes.
and then coming to our podcast, our regular show tonight. So really appreciate it.
It was my honor.
Thank you.
It was my honor.
And any closing words or final thoughts, Pastor Green, feel free before we close the show out.
Well, I think one of the best things about Trump winning this election is that we know we won't have to see or hear Kamala Harris ever again.
Amen.
Well, I guess her campaign was joyful after all. I guess her campaign was full of joy after all.
Yes. This is not the joy she was expecting.
Yeah,
well,
that's the joy I needed, because I tell you, man.
Yeah.
I am happy about that.
Yeah, we dodged the bullet. I mean, Trump dodged the bullet, so we luckily dodged the biggest bullet there was. So
yes, we did. Yes,
All
we
right.
did.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Episode 34 is in the bag. We will be back. We've been sticking to Sundays for a while, so just assume that's when we'll be back. Our next broadcast will be 2 weeks from now on Sunday, November 24th, probably around the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. So definitely tune back with us. Subscribe, like, share. Let's continue getting the word out, growing this platform. Once again, thank you again, Pastor Green, and we will see you guys next time. Uncomfy Truths out for now. Stay awake, but not woke. Talk to you later.
Peace.
Good night.